So let's get into Mike's mailbag. You ready to rock, Michael?
I am ready.
All right. So our first question comes from a loyal listener and supporter of the Leafs Convo, Rob Tyndall at FarmerRob17. If Tavares re-signs on the island, what does Mike think the Leafs' best options are to fill the third and fourth line center jobs? Try to keep the answers brief, Mike.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing they'll do is try to re-sign Tyler Bozak because it's a known commodity. Now, Bozak is going to probably get offers of 4 or 5 years in free agency based on the fact there are not a lot of centers in this market. But if the Leafs go up to 3 years, maybe Bozak would re-sign in Toronto. The Joe Thornton thing seems to have dried up. It seems he's going back to San Jose. As for the fourth line center, as for the fourth line center, it sounds like Par Lindholm, the SHL veteran who they signed a few weeks ago, will probably be penciled in as the fourth line center. But I'm sure they're going to acquire some depth options. Mm-hmm. But I think the first move would be to try to get Bozak back, and if not, then they may get a little inventive and make a trade for somebody who's maybe a salary dump type of player. But we'll see.
Have you ever seen the 40-Year-Old Virgin, that movie?
Yes.
When Mo Collins is sitting across from Steve Carell, she goes, "Tuck your sack back." How about tuck your Bozak back? I don't know. Every time you say Bozak back, it sounds like. Anyway, this one's from Gary Gambon. We've answered some of his questions in the past. At Gary Gambon. Aside from JT, I haven't heard that the Leafs have been talking to any other UFAs, including their own. Are they talking to anyone else? So you've addressed Tyler Bozak, and look, I like Tyler Bozak. If he's back, I'm not going to cry about it. I'd like to see if there's anybody else out there. We've heard the name Jeff Skinner linked to at least rumors that he could be a backup plan if the Leafs don't land Tavares. You can address Gary's question, and if you have anything to say on Skinner, go for it.
Well, I don't know about Skinner because Skinner is a winger and he doesn't help them up the middle. Now that would pretend that they move Nylander to center, but that doesn't seem to be the plan of Babcock. I don't think he'd be comfortable with Nylander up the middle. But I mean, if they can't get a viable option as a number 3, they might have to move Nylander up the middle. So I don't think Skinner's a fit, and Carolina is going to expect to get a good return, like probably a first-round pick or a young player for Skinner, and I don't think the Leafs are interested in that kind of move. So I would say nay on that. But as for other free agents, I mean, you got to remember they're keeping Dubas has assumed the throne of Lou Lamoriello in terms of secrecy. We're not really going to know about any free agents unless it comes from the free agent themselves. I mean, they're interested in defensemen. Maybe they'd be in on somebody like Calvin DeHaan, but that's guesswork. I don't know. And no, not many people do.
All right, Gary, you have to wait and see like the rest of us. From Carlisle G, huge supporter of the Leafs Combo. Thank you so much. At Leaf Forever. Putting aside all the JT talk, what are we doing to improve our D? We've spoken about this. We've discussed it. We've broken it down aplenty. Michael, go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said yesterday that the focus really has to be on getting that top 4 defenseman. But remember, this has been at the top of the Leafs shopping list for 2 years, and they haven't been able to do it. Now, I don't think they want to overpay for a top 4 defender. If they get Tavares, then I think, pretty much they may be limited by their cap to be able to do anything other than just promote from within. Maybe they can get themselves a short-term free agent, but I think if they don't get Tavares, you're going to start hearing the Chris Tanev talk. You're going to start hearing, I don't know about Erik Karlsson. I think that's a pipe dream, but I think that they'll make a concerted effort to get themselves a top 4 defender. But again, they don't grow on trees, and the prices are obscene. I talked to somebody from Vancouver at the draft in Dallas, and he said that the price that Vancouver was looking for Tanev, for a guy who's missed 70 games over the last 2 years, was exorbitant, and that Toronto probably wouldn't be interested in paying that price. So, it's going to be tough for Dubas, just as it was tough for Lamoriello to find that top 4 defenseman that's been so elusive.
Anytime Erik Karlsson is brought up, I wonder what – I mean, he's just as dynamic as he gets on the blue line, but you put him on the Leafs blue line, you're going to score even more. But have you addressed your defensive situation at all? Real quick on that, and then we'll continue. No, exactly, and that's the point here. We're looking for I mean, bring back Dmitry Yuskevich for goodness sakes. I mean, that's the kind. That's who we're kind of. That's the kind of player that you're looking for to offspell some of the the deficiencies that Jake Gardner has on the defensive end, and you let him go and be the creative maestro, the quarterback of the power play, a guy who can pinch a little bit and take some chances, and then that you have your D partner flanking or on the other side, helping you take these risks and keeping things cool at home.
Well, Carlson's a poster child for the philosophy of the best defense is a good offense. So,
yeah.
But we've seen that hasn't worked with Gardner because, he's very good offensively, but when it's time to go into your zone, then it's panic time. So, plus, I think Ottawa would ask for much more from Toronto than any other team. So it's a non-starter for me.
Jeremy Scott, what would you do with Jake Gardner for this upcoming season? Do you move him, get someone to play with him, let him continue his screw-ups, or banish him to the island? I don't think we've, other than Tavares, I don't know if there's a player we've talked about more and discussed and debated more. We like Jake Gardner, and if he's back, great. He's probably going to put up another 50 points. He skates like the wind. He's nifty with the puck. He'll make you pull your hair out. So, I mean, what do we say about Jake Gardner at this point that hasn't been said already?
Well, the talk in Dallas was that Kyle Dubas had touched base with Pat Brisson, who obviously is the agent for Tavares, but that he was talking about parameters for a potential Gardner extension to find out what he would want because he can be signed to an extension on July 1st. Based on that, if the amount is reasonable, then it's likely that the Leafs would try to sign him to an extension. But if he's looking, and this is the thing we have to remember, next year supposedly Carlson, Doughty, McDonough, not Ekman Larson anymore, they're all UFAs. But as the year goes on, these guys may drop off. The number one free agent in terms of defensemen could be Jake Gardner next year. And if that's the case, it's the same scenario as JVR, who's going to get $6 to $6.5 million on a 7-year deal. If I'm Dubas, I'm saying, okay, if I can't get him on a reasonable contract, then I either now or before the deadline, I'm trading him because I can't let this guy walk for nothing.
Interesting, though. What are you going to get for Jake Gardner? Clearly, the team that is acquiring him will know that it's a good time, not a long time, and will want to reimburse the Maple Leafs accordingly. Or they'd want some sort of security that a guy like this would commit to their program long term. So that's kind of where they are right now, and that's why I do understand the exploration of an extension for Jake Gardner. Heck, you're not going to find too many puck rushers from the blue line who can do what he does with that velocity that he skates at. So, maybe keep him in the fold and go and try to find him some help. And I wanted to ask you, we never talk about Morgan Riley as any sort of trade bait. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a big expert on the contracts and all kinds of stuff like that. I look at the player, and I should probably do a little bit more, incorporate the player's contractual situation a little bit more into my thought of that player. But Morgan Riley, is he a guy that the Maple Leafs might say, look, he's great. He's probably get a lot of attention putting him out there for trade. If we put him up on the bulletin board, would they consider keeping Jake Gardner and not letting Morgan Riley go, but using Morgan Riley to lure in some talent to help Jake Gardner's blue line now?
No, I think that's a complete non-starter. I mean, first of all, Riley is on a great contract, $5 million. I think it's another 4 years. And he's grown into, I think, definitely a top two pairing, a top two defenseman. Maybe he's not a number one, but he's definitely a number two. So I don't, I think he's growing into the player that they thought he was going to be. And I think there's no interest in the organization in moving him. But I'll tell you, with Gardner, I floated this idea with a Winnipeg reporter that works for Hockey Buzz. The Winnipeg Jets need left-hand shot defensemen and have an overabundance of right-handed shot defensemen. How about Tyler Myers 1-for-1 for Jake Gardner? It would solve both teams' problems. I don't think it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying I've heard any rumors about it, but if you're looking at the needs of both teams, and I think the Jets might have a better chance of signing Gardner to an extension because Winnipeg is relatively close to his home in Minnesota. So if that happened, I wouldn't be knocked over by it.
Is Tyler Myers a poor man's Zdeno Chara?
He's not. No, he's just big, and he's a big, lanky offensive defenseman. But he's also, he's incorporated a little physicality into his game. But he's not. He doesn't have the mean streak that Chara does.
Chara is one of the great defensemen, intimidating. But every time I think of Zdeno Chara, I think of Darcy Tucker flattening him. Little Darcy Tucker just rocking his world. Amazing. Last question for you from Ryan Bubba Tyrell. NJ, can we make Mike an honorary Canadian July 1st? Maybe send him some beaver tails and ketchup chips. I love you, Bubba, but Mike lives on the border. I mean, Buffalo's practically Canadian anyway.
Yeah.
Great work, guys. Long-time subscriber, first-time tweeter.
Yeah.
Mike, you are an honorary Canadian.
Yeah, I'm 8 miles from the border, so yeah, I consider myself almost half Canadian, half American. I hate to say though, in response to that, I hate ketchup chips. I'm a dill pickle chip guy, which that they're so much better.
Mike, I dill pickle. You know what's funny? My wife and I actually have a chip ranking, and the number one chips for me are Miss Vicky's sea salt and vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
The number one chip, just for the overall crunchiness, bite, just delicious. Dill pickle chips are right up there too.
Yep.
And I've never been a ketchup chip guy ever, but my wife loves them. And the one time we're low on chips, and I just start eating, and I'm like, whatever. They've got there's a salty taste and a kind of a sweet taste, and I wouldn't rank them on a top 5. But I don't mind them now, and part of it is because I'm trying to, I'm thinking of my long-term longevity here as a husband to my wife. So I'm going to comply with things that she likes and try to like them myself. But they're not as bad as I thought they were. However, dill pickle chips, man, back in the day, the Hostess bags, they weren't that foily stuff. Now it was more of a thicker paper, and you rip them open, and then you get your honeymoon sweet card from the the little Hostess contest they'd have, and then you'd be licking all the dill pickle chip stuff. And all these millennials are listening to us right now, going, "What the hell are you dudes talking about?"
Old Dutch dill pickle chips.
Ooh.
And they don't make them anymore now. They do the creamy dill, which is not as good. But I have to say, Canadian potato chips are better than American potato chips for one reason: they're saltier. For some reason, I don't know whether your version of the Food and Drug Administration has different limits on salt, but the Canadian chips are so much saltier and so much better than the American chips.
Come on, Canada's a nanny state. Remember, it's Canuckistan, as Pat Buchanan called it. No, it's because we all smoke Export A Green, and we have no taste buds left, and the beer. So that's why they need to up the salt content. But yeah, you know what, folks, send us through the comment section or on Twitter. What are your top 5 chips? My number one chip is the Miss Vicky kettle cooked sea salt and vinegar. That's number one. And you have to think of not just what your favorite taste, but if you had to have one bag, one type of chips to eat for a month every day, what would it be? I mean, heck, we'll call it chip watch. Tavares watch is in a full effect. Who knows what the heck happens, Mike? I mean, I can make a prediction that is sad sap, but keeping my fingers crossed that ultimately he comes to Toronto. I'd like to think JT understands what he is on the cusp of right here, and it's an amazing thing. It's a courageous thing. It's a rewarding thing. He could be decorated beyond belief. And really, I mean, Toronto's a madhouse, but it's home. And I really do hope that he defies the odds, rewrites history, comes and joins a team that he is going to make so much better. And I just go play some fun, amazing, scintillating, effervescent hockey. Leaf fans have been waiting so long for this. It is our time, Michael. We got to go.
Thanks, Norman.